You are listening to A Scary State, and this week we're talking about Nebraska. So, Lauren?
Yes, Kenzie.
Let's get scary.
And that noise that just came rushing in was Roy with his toy.
Nebraska. I really emphasize the B there.
We've been really emphasizing different names of different states this couple weeks.
Yeah, Nebraska. Oh, you're really going to start chewing on that?
Bubba. We just started.
He's like, who, me? Oh, and it squeaks.
Yeah, it does.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
And he's back. And he's gone again.
He's just very excited. He, like myself, have not seen you in like a week and a half.
I know.
And it's been so long.
It's been way too long. Way too long. We can't do that again.
We can't do that again.
Although we're about to do it in the summer for like a month, so.
I know, because you're leaving me.
You can always come with me.
Don't tempt me.
Oh, I will definitely tempt you. 100%.
That would actually be really fun.
Yes.
Like a long weekend or something.
Yes. I keep inviting all of my friends down to my mom's house.
Well, I'm practically your mom's other daughter,
right.
So.
She has no idea I've invited all these people.
She'll just be so surprised every time you have a new visitor.
Yep. And I'll be like, Mom, I'm also bringing everyone with me.
I couldn't be apart.
Sorry, I've grown too attached. But the reason we haven't seen each other is because we were on vacation.
Oh, yeah.
Separately
on vacation. I went to Cabo to celebrate my friend's 30th birthday, and oh my God, it was amazing.
Beautiful.
It was. It was starting to be their fall, I think, because like the equator.
What?
Wait, what hemisphere is it on?
The northern.
Oh, then never mind.
It might be close to the equator.
Yeah, it was close to the equator.
But it's not in the
Anywho, it was kind of chilly. It was like 65 degrees.
If you don't keep that shit in, I'm going to be so pissed at you.
So it was like 65 degrees. And this is the first time I've ever done all-inclusive. Oh my God. It was the most incredible thing. Like I could just go up anywhere and order whatever I wanted. And I had a goal that I would eat a taco every day.
Did you?
I did. I ate
Love
a taco
that.
every day.
Love that.
Oh my God. I was just living my best life, drinking whatever I wanted, eating whatever I wanted. And
Hell
then
yeah.
I realized that all I had been eating really were carbs and meat. So this whole week at work, all I've had to eat were fruits and vegetables.
Way
Yeah.
to turn it around.
Thank you. It's really been a shift. And I have like my healthy meal and then I see all the good food at work and I'm like, this makes me sad.
Yeah.
Oh, but yeah, amazing. 10 out of 10 would recommend.
If your diet was mostly carbs and meat to begin with, you wouldn't have felt so bad.
Yeah, but it's not typically just carbs and meat.
That's what I'm saying. Mine is.
And you have a lot of cheese mixed in there.
100%.
Oh, it was just amazing.
I love that.
It was so short. It was only like, we were there for 2 full days, so like 3 nights.
I'm
But
not traveling. You were traveling all day.
I know, but I was like, short trip or no trip at all? Let's take the short trip. Yep.
Absolutely. For sure.
So how was your vacation?
Mine was great. I went to Denver.
Oh, amazing.
I went for a wedding. And then we decided to make it a vacation since this was my spring break.
Oh, yeah.
Woohoo. That I got no sleep on.
Oh, girl, same.
Thank God tomorrow's a teacher birthday and it's a work from a desired location.
Oh.
And I'm like, I will be sleeping in and working from bed.
Working from my bed, my
Yes.
desired location.
And if I really need to change the scenery, I'll move to the couch. But before I go into my trip about Colorado, I have in my notes here my dream from last night.
Oh, yeah.
Because shit was bonkers. And my dreams have gotten to the point where like I know I've had them, but unless something happens in the day that triggers that memory,
Right.
I typically don't remember what they
Right.
are. So I was listening to one of my fave podcasts called Normal Gossip.
I have heard so many people talk about
You
this.
have to fucking listen to it. They finally started season 4, and I forgot that they started season 4, and my automatic play on Spotify started playing them, and I was like, oh my God, I forgot they came up in the new episode. Anywhozer, the backstory is it takes place at a farmer's market. So they're talking about all these plants. And that's when I had a realization that I dreamed that I was in the neighborhood that I grew up in,
Mhm.
and there were giant sunflowers.
Oh.
Huge.
It's because you missed me.
Possibly. Well, I don't know, because it got weird.
Oh.
So like it was like it was supposed to be the end of the season, and so like they were going to disappear soon, but we weren't allowed to like take them out of the ground.
Okay.
And there was some sort of like weird monster thing. I don't know if it developed from the flowers or somewhere else. And it was kind of like some people could be like turned or you weren't sure if they were. And
Creepy.
it was very creepy. And then at some point it ended up at my dad's. We had to get out. That's usually when I dream about my dad's house, I usually have to get out.
Oh. I wonder what that is saying about your psychology.
Usually moms, I'm trying to get in. Love you, Dad. So we had to get out of there because the monsters had infiltrated the house.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And I had to get to my mom's house. And so get there. And at some point, I'm in like a big van SUV thing. Anyway, there was a lot of monsters that we had to run away from and some high-speed chases.
Monsters, sunflowers, and high-speed chases.
Yeah. I was watching Schitt's Creek last night, so I'm really not sure where it came from.
No, that's not Schitt's Creek at all. Weird.
But anyway, my trip. So, not to be confused with that trip.
Oh, yes.
So, it's a great time. Denver, absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
Love it. Crazy weather. Arrived and it was snowing.
Oh.
Last day I was there, we were wearing t-shirts.
Wild.
Yeah. But it was like, even though it was cold, it wasn't bitterly cold.
Mm-hmm.
Like it wasn't winter freezing. Oh my God, I want to die. Everything was so pretty.
I know.
We went to like a local hole in the wall dive bar kind of place just to get some drinks before we went up and met with like a bigger group of people. And we were just sitting, chatting. And, we all took turns buying rounds of drinks. And I went up to the bar and got the next round. So as I'm standing there, tunnel vision to the bar.
Yep.
I probably fucked up because I maybe I walked in too close. Like, I can't remember if there was enough room that I could have shimmied over to the left. But anyway, there's a guy sitting and a guy next to him standing, and they're talking. Until all of a sudden, the guy who's standing tried to get my attention. And I didn't respond at first, but then he was very obvious he was trying to get my attention. So I turned and, he said something about pretty blonde, liking my vibes. I don't know. I just kept saying thank you and then turning my head.
Right. Like I clearly
I don't want to have this conversation. Right. And put in the drink order, waiting for her to get back with all of them.
Yeah.
And they're kind of talking to each other, but then he also kind of talks to me too. And same with the guy here. Then the guy who's standing walks around and is now standing behind me.
Oh yeah, I don't like that.
And I'm like, okay, I don't feel comfortable. And so she puts my drinks down and I went to go hand her the card. And she's like, you can go take those back to your table. And I was like, okay. So I picked them up, brought them back to the table, put them down, went to turn to go back and get the card. And she looked at me, she's like, no. And she came to me and she was like, I'm so sorry. Clearly he's had too much. He needs to go. I hope everything's okay.
Women.
Right?
Protecting women.
And as soon as she said I didn't have to go back up, I knew that she knew. I was like, fuck yeah. Love her. Great bartender.
Amazing.
Absolutely amazing.
Everyone be like this bartender.
Absolutely. So nice. So just overall a wonderful lady.
Love it.
Loved it. It was just very ironic because later that evening, we went to a different bar. Now, this bar was cool because after a certain time in the night, you can go to order a drink and they'll flip a coin. And if you call heads and it lands on heads, it's free.
Whoa.
But if it lands on tails, then you got to pay for it.
Well, yeah.
So
a risk I'd be willing to take.
Right. But people will buy a lot of drinks and, kind of gamble with whether or not they can get it for free. One of my friends got 4 drinks and ended up getting it for free. I got my single drink because I was too scared to get more than that. And he flipped the coin. It was tails. And I got myself a free drink.
Wow.
Myself. But there was this group of guys there that was on a bachelor trip. And the guy who's getting married was sitting there next to me and just, I don't know, going on. And his friend had brought something up about having previously been engaged and it not work out and life is short kind of thing. But then when I looked down at his hand, he had a wedding ring on. And I was like, wait a minute. Did the previous engagement not work out?
Is this a new engagement?
I was so confused. I was like, I was thinking like, oh, it didn't work out. Like,
Right. Now he's reminiscing on this bachelor trip.
right. I'm like, okay, but you're married. But anyway, his buddy who's getting married starts going on and on about, I don't understand why girls always think that you're trying to hook up with them or flirt with them or whatever. Like I'm about to be married. Like I'm just trying to make conversation.
Oh, I hate that. I hate that.
I was like, yeah, like I can understand that. There's not everyone has ill intentions, but I think we're willing to risk looking like a bitch and,
Staying alive,
hurting your ego than the possibility of maybe getting murdered.
Yeah.
So,
is that what you said it?
Uh-huh.
Nice.
He's like, oh yeah, of course. I'm just saying. And I'm like, of course
you're saying.
Like, and I'm like, that's so funny because one of your fellow men just made me shit a brick because this dude was tall.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh my God.
I'm not tall. This is scary.
Thank God my friends were over there. They even said, they were like, we were keeping an eye on you.
Right.
Like, to see
if we needed to intervene.
Right. And I'm like, that's how obvious it was that people sitting away from the table could see the uncomfortableness.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I get it. Yeah, you know what? You're probably not a really nice guy.
Well, here's this one thing I heard. It's like the whole not all men thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, it's not all men, but say I gave you 10 shot glasses.
Mm-hmm.
All of them are filled with alcohol, but one is poison.
Mm-hmm.
Would you take any of those shots? No, because you're nervous that one of them will be poison.
Exactly.
So it's not all the shots, but you don't know.
Absolutely.
So it's the same thing. We know it's not all men, but we don't know.
But we don't know. Because then you have situations like that where I did try to be nice at first.
Mm-hmm.
I engaged, I, was pleasant, and then that's where it got me.
Right.
And so I'm like, they can't pick up on the social cues that we're not interested.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just like, even if you couldn't pick up on that, you then go so far as to do things that would make someone extremely uncomfortable.
Right. But because you denied it, you're a bitch.
Right.
Yeah.
Or because you overthought it, or like, why would anyone want to get with you, or whatever the case may be. And it's just like, look, dude.
Right.
My mentality is, if you get butthurt every time someone says all men suck, you're the reason that people are saying that.
Right.
Because no good man actually gets bothered by that, because
Joe doesn't get bothered when I say that.
He actually understands, some of the people in my species are actually pretty, or gender, whatever.
Species, same
species,
thing.
gender, whatever, are pretty fucking annoying.
Yeah.
So that was not the highlight, but it was just the comedic timing, was truly unfathomable.
Like, truly, sir, if you had been with me an hour ago.
Really, the highlight of that night was the fact that I won a free drink.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
That's what I was actually excited about.
Absolutely.
But yeah, totally in love with Denver. Would totally move there, like, in a hot minute. But
veto, but go on.
Yeah. So obviously we were staying with some friends. They had just moved there, so they have met people, become friends. But they were telling some like wild stories that I was just sitting there on my phone with my little notes pad, just having them in me like, oh my God, I have to talk about this. Oh my God, I have to talk about this. Oh yeah, wedding, beautiful, gorgeous, loved it, cried the whole time.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, absolutely.
The moment the ceremony started, sobbing. Oh, I just love.
I do too.
But these friends, so I'm going to skirt back over here. This girl knew someone who was in a sorority, and she had lied about having cancer, and they had all raised money for her.
Oh, was it in the U.S.?
I assume so.
Oh, because I literally today, I was reading like news articles that pop up on Yahoo when I get bored. And one was about this girl who lived in Australia, and she did the same thing. She said she had cancer and she raised a ton of money, and then she became a wellness coach because she said that's how her cancer was cured. So yeah, probably a different story, but just weird of the similarity.
But yeah, they all raised money for her and then found out that she didn't have cancer.
Wow.
And
what a bitch.
Right. So this other girl in our group, she there was this guy there, and she called him out because he had hooked up with her friend and then just didn't say anything. And this was the night before.
Mm-hmm.
But when we were talking about it, we were in the elevator and we were just saying you could have come up with some bullshit excuse. You could have said anything. And very loudly, she shouts in the elevator, he could have made the excuse that her vagina smelled. And then we open the elevator and there's 7 people. And we're like, oh,
Hi.
cool. Like, so awkward.
Oh, that's so
It was
funny.
hilarious. Then another girl, I overheard her saying that a friend of hers had hooked up with a guy who murdered his mom. Yeah.
What state? Do we have to cover this?
I don't know because I don't, like, I know where she's from.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it was stuff that, like, happened to people that she knew in Colorado.
Damn.
Or Virginia.
Damn.
So that's why I wrote it down.
Right. Must look into.
And then another girl said that this happened at Virginia Tech. That some guy, he was like an international student, asked a girl out and she said no. So he supposedly took a samurai and cut her head off in the ABP at Virginia Tech.
When was that?
I don't know.
Damn.
These were all overheard conversations. I just like turned and I was like,
like when you're in school and you have your headphones in, but you have no music
Yes.
on, so you can hear people gossiping. Yeah.
And I'm like, if someone sees me scroll down this list,
Right.
like, all these things that I have.
Damn.
Yeah. I was like, this is definitely going on the podcast.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Crazy. So we'll have to look more into that when we
Yeah.
come around and see if we can find
Absolutely.
those stories. But my trip was great.
Good.
I
Happy to hear.
Love Colorado.
And if you're in Colorado and there's any fun spooky things, let us know.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, we could go to the Stanley Hotel.
No.
Why?
I'm not staying in a
We don't have to stay. We can go visit. It was the inspiration for The Shining.
Mm.
The Shining's so good. It's so good. It's not that scary, honestly.
That's what you have said I don't know how many times.
It's really good. That's the red rum thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, we'll go to Stanley Hotel. We'll drive by at least. Look at it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
On our way
yeah.
to like hiking or something fun.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I just don't know. It's great to read these from afar, but once you put me in there, I'm
Oh, I want to go so badly.
not brave.
Joe and I, when we go up to Salem one day, we want to stay at the Hawthorne, and it's a haunted hotel. And each time I think about it, I'm like, yeah, I want to stay there. And then I think about it more. I'm like, do I want to stay there?
I'm currently getting heart palpitations.
I mean, my justification is I have stayed in a haunted house before, so maybe a haunted hotel
And
won't
did
be
you
worse.
enjoy yourself?
Not when everyone left me in the whisper room. I
Okay.
was not a big fan of that part. So that made me kind of sad. And I also am the kind of person, like, I always wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, and that would freak me out, thinking, like, what am I going to bump into in here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My mind is not great with that.
Mm-mm. I freak myself out in non-haunted places.
Oh, have you seen that one? It's like a tweet or whatever, and someone's like, I don't know why I do this to myself. I'll be down in the kitchen getting juice, and I think, what if someone's behind me?
Oh my God.
All the time.
Oh my fucking God.
Have you ever had that thing happen where, like, I know some people have thoughts where it doesn't, like, their thoughts don't, like, talk in their head, but I, like, have the thoughts and, like, it's, like, you know, noise in my head.
Mhm.
And then sometimes I'll just stop thinking and it goes quiet. I'm like, what happened? Why is it so quiet? And then I'm like, oh, yeah, I was just thinking of things and now I'm done. It's a weird thing to explain. It makes me sound so stupid. No, but it's happened and it's just so weird. Okay, like when you've said before where you're like, I wasn't even listening to music and it was just all the noises in my head.
Well, right, because I don't stop thinking. So I don't know what it means for it to go quiet.
No, that's why when it's happened before, it's like jarring and I'm like, what is this?
This thing can turn off? What? No
It doesn't
way.
happen often, but when it does, it's just like jarring.
Well, and it's gotten so much worse living by myself.
Oh, absolutely.
And I've gotten way too comfortable with talking to myself.
That's also why I listen to podcasts all the time because I'm like, I need the noise.
Like, I'm pretty much listening to someone talking. Sometimes I'll listen
Always.
to music.
Sometimes, yeah,
But for the most part, I'm like listening to a podcast, whether I'm getting ready, whether I'm cleaning.
absolutely same.
I think I have those moments when, like, I haven't turned the TV on right away, like right when I just get home, especially if I'm not on the phone with my mom.
Yeah.
And so I'm putting my stuff away and I haven't had a chance to go turn on the TV. I'll all of a sudden be like, why is it so fucking quiet?
Right. Yes. So
'Cause I
you've
haven't
had
turned the
those
TV
moments too.
Yeah. I mean, my brain hasn't like shut off. It just realized like, oh, fuck, you're by yourself. You're going to turn on some noise. So we don't remember that.
Right. Yeah.
Live in the illusion.
All right. So we should probably get to Nebraska.
How long
Can
have
you tell we haven't seen each other for a while?
I know. Okay, you know what? Technically, all the things that I told you are things that I wanted to also say on the podcast because I wanted to tell all of our listeners too.
Good.
Because I missed you guys as well.
Yeah. It's just felt like so long.
It really has. It really has.
All right. So Nebraska ranks in the top 10 for best overall quality of life. And they also have the second lowest unemployment rate in the nation.
Good for them.
And it is in the top 3 for best states to live in.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. I always thought of Nebraska. It looks like a hat.
Looks like a hat.
And
Oh, yeah.
Oklahoma looks like a pot.
Yeah. The world's largest indoor rainforest is in Omaha at the Lied Jungle at Henry Dorley Zoo. So it's like an indoor rainforest. That's cool.
Yes, but I have come to terms with the fact that in places like that, there are far more animals that I do not want to see than animals
totally
I do
valid.
want to see.
Totally valid.
So,
like that little rainforest part of the aquarium. The aquarium has a little rainforest.
I haven't been to the
I
aquarium.
will go with you soon. I love the aquarium.
Well, it's a trip because it's all the way up to Baltimore and it's like $40.
Yeah, I know.
Last time I looked, they didn't have otters, so that's why I didn't go.
Oh.
So, I'm not spending that money if I can't see them.
Oh, well, I love it. Also, the world's largest hand-planted forest is the Halsey National Forest near Threadford. It covers over 90,000 acres.
Wow.
Carhenge is located in Nebraska. This is their version of Stonehenge. So it's literally just cars. Nebraska has more miles of rivers than any other state and is home to over 1,000 lakes.
So, but it's 1,000, not 10,000.
Right. Not the land of 10,000 lakes. The largest mammoth fossil is housed in Nebraska.
Did you know how many freaking dinosaurs are found in Colorado?
No.
Yeah.
Wild.
Apparently, it's like a big dinosaur place. Yeah.
That's insane.
Right?
I love that.
I know.
Did you see any fossils?
No.
Oh.
But in the airport, there was a giant
bone skeleton
of a dinosaur.
Whale. Oh.
Our Uber, when we were driving to the place where the wedding was going to be, she was telling us that there was something on the other side of the mountains. It was like a dig site or like
how cool.
some sort of something or other exhibit of a real life fossil.
Oh, that's so cool.
Right.
The world's largest stamp ball in the world is located in
What kind of ball?
Stamp.
Oh.
Yeah. It's located in the Leon Myers Stamp Center at Boys Town. The lowest temperature was recorded in Oshkosh in 1989.
Oshkosh.
At negative 47 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 8.3 degrees Celsius.
You just hear things like that, and it's just so
I know.
pleasant.
All right, here's a super gross fact.
Okay.
The story that leads to a true fact says that in 1867, an employee of Union Pacific, William Thompson, was out doing some routine repairs. This is when he was attacked by Cheyenne natives. He was grabbed, scalped, and left for dead. But miraculously, he regained consciousness, found his scalp, grabbed it, and ran into town.
I think I've heard this story before.
Really?
I think so.
He ended up at a library looking for help. He did find help, and when with the doctors, he was informed that his scalp could not be reattached. So what does he do with his scalp? Well, he donated it to the library. Ew! It is still being preserved at the Omaha Public Library in a dark room and can still be seen on special occasions or upon request. Don't know how he lived after that, but...
people do things, and I'm like, why?
Right.
What is the purpose of that?
No need for this.
Like, am I just that easily amused by life that I really just don't have to try that hard?
And you just get to hear about it here instead.
That's true. Yeah. I live vicariously through everybody else.
Right. In Council Bluffs, there is a beautiful statue of an angel who stands over a fountain. But she has a dark history. It is said that sometimes you can see fire burning in her eyes at midnight.
Ooh.
Others say that if children go behind the statue, they will vanish forever. But also, if you gaze into her eyes at night, you will see your early demise. Then, if she appears in your dream, you know your end will be approaching soon. Kool-Aid was invented by Edwin E. Perkins of Hastings in 1927. So were Reuben sandwiches. They were invented by a guy named Reuben Kulikovsky, probably better than a Kulikovsky sandwich. He was a grocer from Lithuania who lived in Omaha.
Nice.
The strobe light and folding election booths came out of Nebraska as well. And Evelyn Sharp became the youngest female pilot in the U.S. at the age of 15.
Shout out to her.
Oh, yeah. She completed her first solo flight at 15, got her private pilot's license at 17, then at 18 got her commercial pilot's license.
Wow.
And then Dick Cheney, Malcolm X, and Nicholas Sparks are all from Omaha.
I expected Nicholas Sparks to be from North Carolina.
Oh, is that where all of his things are based?
Every single book is in North Carolina.
Well, North Carolina is beautiful.
That's true.
So that could be why.
I think it's like Wellington or something.
Wilmington? One of the Ingtons?
One of the Ingtons. I did a really good job on the plane.
Oh, I'm proud of you.
I was very zen.
With your rescue otter.
I was very zen. Henry was a huge help. Big hit. On the way back, it was like crystal clear. And for the first time, I was like, I'm not going to look down. Like, not too much of a fan of the fact that I can see how far down.
Oh, see, I love.
I used to love it.
Window.
I used to love it. And then I don't know what it was.
It's just like, comforting for me. Oh, I flew over a Great Lake.
Oh, nice. Oh, so did I.
Oh,
yeah.
It was so freaking big.
Because you went into Chicago too, right?
No. I know both of us looking at our mouth. But yeah, I was like, damn, that is a Great Lake.
It's so mighty.
It's so big.
Oh my goodness.
All right, Mackenzie, what do you have for us today?
I have for you the ball ceremony. Jesus.
Really great start.
Cemetery.
Oh, much better than a ceremony.
Mm-hmm. You know, this year's a rough one when I'm starting to get my end of year sickness in spring.
Oh.
Instead of I still got a quarter left.
Going strong. Last
year, I got it the last week of school. Usually I get it like a few days after school ends.
Right. I remember that.
And now
so we're just going to tell y'all now, sorry, when we get to the end of the school year.
Yes. But you know, for right now, you can enjoy this like sexy, raspy.
Phoebe's sexy voice.
Yeah, exactly.
My smelly, smelly cat. Okay, go on.
I bring you the haunting tales of ball ceremony.
Why? Cemetery. You even were like, ball ceremony.
In Springfield, Nebraska. So when I first began looking into this, I thought I would not be able to find much information about it. And while there is not a ton of like history or background information on the cemetery itself, the tales that people have to tell about their experiences are wild.
Oh, yeah.
We have a Ouija board communication, possible possessions, maybe some demonic symbols, plenty of orbs, apparitions, and definitely some terrifying screams.
Oh my God.
Both dead and alive.
Oh, spicy.
Mm-hmm. So the cemetery itself belongs to the Ball family, and most of the family and their descendants have been buried here, and it's still owned by the Ball family. The oldest headstone is dated back to 1869, and it is the second oldest cemetery in Nebraska. It, of course, is also one of the most haunted places in Nebraska.
Wild that that's a thing.
I know. It is the second oldest cemetery.
Like in the world?
No, in
just
Nebraska.
kidding. In the U.S.? Oh, in Nebraska.
In Nebraska.
Oh, okay.
So there are a couple of well-known residences that can be found buried in the cemetery. One of those is William Liddard, who you may know as Rattlesnake Pete. Nope. Who you may know as Rattlesnake Pete. He left Nebraska to join Buffalo Bill in his escapades. For those of you who don't know Buffalo Bill, he was a buffalo hunter and in the army, but he is best known for giving the Wild West its name. Yeah, he did like the sideshows.
Oh, yeah.
Rattlesnake Pete is buried in Ball Cemetery and said to be one of the ghosts that haunts its grounds. Some have claimed to see a tall male figure walking around the cemetery after dark. This apparition is not known to be friendly. People have left with scratches and unexplained bruises after leaving the cemetery. Could it be Pete chasing away unwanted visitors? Another well-known resident is Mary Mumford. No clue as to why she specifically is the most well-known, but people think that she haunts the cemetery as well.
Okay.
So when I looked up our beloved Mary, not much could be found. She was listed on findagrave.com and was born in 1844 in Indiana and died in 1885 at the young age of 40 in Nebraska.
Yeah.
Her husband, John, actually had an obituary, and it said that they had married in 1866 and they had had 9 children together.
Oh.
Not sure if when it said like 5 still survive, if it meant that there are only 5 who are now currently living.
That's what it usually means.
When Dad died?
Yeah, that's typically what it means.
Or like only 5 survived to adulthood. I don't know.
Only 5 survived to that point. That's for sure.
Yeah, they only have 5 left. Anyway, some say that they can hear a woman's screams or laugh and they feel a tugging on their clothing while they're near her headstone. So when I first looked into this place, my usual spots were scarce with comments of people's personal experiences. Unsolved Mysteries did a podcast episode about the cemetery, and they have some very interesting stories to tell. You'll have to decide for yourself if their stories have any truth to them. So then I decided to take my search to Reddit.
Oh, best choice. Love Reddit.
Best choice I ever made. And I'm mad that I didn't make it sooner. I found great spooky stories and local skeptics and debunkers, along with hilarious headlines such as, "When you're balls deep in your girl and they say, 'Sir, please leave the pet cemetery.'"
Oh, God.
I expect nothing less from Reddit when using the search terms ball and cemetery together. Nonetheless, Reddit came through, and I have a lovely little collection of ghost stories to spook you with this evening.
Okay, wonderful.
So, I kind of attempted to put these in chronological order, but
sometimes it just doesn't.
Yeah, because it's like, oh, this person commented 3 years ago, but then it's like, this happened in 2011 or whatever.
Right.
So, bear with me. But our first story dates back to the mid-1990s. Ty Duncan, who told his story on the episode of Unsolved Mysteries, said he and some friends had decided to take their chances and explore the cemetery. They had heard all kinds of stories and wanted to check it out. Couldn't be me. Even before they arrived at the cemetery, Ty was getting a very uneasy feeling, telling his friends, "Look, this doesn't sit well with me. I don't think we should go." His friends only poked fun at him for being too scared to go into the cemetery, and when they arrived, it was getting dark, and large looming trees added to the ominous feel of the place. Near the trees was a large pile of rocks, and Ty said he got the feeling that on the other side, just out of view, there was a woman standing there laughing at them. Ty described it as, quote, almost sinister feeling of, "I told you to stay away. I warned you. You shouldn't have come here."
Gross.
Ty decided it might be best if he stayed in the car, but after lots of pestering and the strong desire to not be alone outside a creepy cemetery, he decided to venture in with his friends. A couple of his friends went to different sides of the cemetery while he and his friend Grant went toward the back. The two came upon a headstone of someone and were poking fun at the name, laughing without actually, really finding anything funny.
Right.
What happens next is best described by Ty himself. He said, quote, "And at that point is when things got kind of strange for me. I kept laughing, and at this point it was almost like I stepped back outside of my body. I knew I was laughing, but it was no longer myself that was laughing. Grant said something like, 'Are you okay?' And I remember kind of leaning into him and saying, 'This is so funny. I'm going to show you how funny this is. Watch Cindy over there. It's about to happen.' He said, 'What's about to happen?' And I said one word, 'Drop.' From across the graveyard, Cindy let out this painful scream. At that point, Charlie came running from the other side of the graveyard, and Grant looked back at me, and he just got wide-eyed look of terror. And he looks at me and he says, 'What did you do?' And he ran off to help Cindy."
Ew.
I said, "Wait, where are you going? This is so much fun. This is funny. Where are you going? Come play with me."
Ew.
Grant picked Cindy off the ground and just tried to carry her to the car pretty much. Half carrying, half dragging her towards the gate, and Grant's like, "Come on, let's go. Let's get out of here. Let's go. What are you doing?" Charlie jumped in the car. Charlie was ready to go. Had no interest in being there anymore. At this point, I was walking back from the graveyard. I said, "Hey, where are you guys going? Don't leave. This is fun. This is a great game. Come laugh with me." And I can't remember if it was Charlie or Grant who came in and grabbed me and, all but stuffed me in the car, and we tore out of there. Ty doesn't remember much about leaving the cemetery, but after they were about 5 to 10 miles away, he said he finally snapped out of it and started asking his friends what happened. Cindy told him, quote, "Something felt like it kicked me in the stomach, and I just doubled over in pain, fell down on the ground, and I couldn't hardly even walk." Ty said he doesn't remember much after that, but he said he will never forget the events that occurred in the cemetery. The experience changed him forever and his beliefs in the paranormal and premonitions.
Gross. Mm-hmm. Sounds like a possession.
A little bit. And then there's the local guy, Trey. That's all his name was.
Of course.
Local guy, Trey.
Local guy, first name. Trey, last name.
Exactly. Trey grew up in the area and lived about 15 minutes from the cemetery growing up. He told Unsolved that anyone who grew up in the area has had experiences or knew someone with an experience at Ball Cemetery. Trey described the cemetery as very dark, and the trees only made it feel even darker. Him and his friends snuck into the place, and one of the people he was with had a really large spotlight type thing. One of his friends suggested that they should call upon a spirit, so they all gathered in a circle and held hands. They didn't think anything was going to happen until they heard a strange noise. When they shined their bright spotlight in the direction of the noise, they saw that there was a windmill that was slowly spinning.
No.
No one in the group could feel any wind, and they continued to watch the windmill, and then they saw it slowly come to a stop. Once it stops, it changed direction and started spinning the opposite way.
No.
Everyone, of course, freaked out and ran back to the cars. Once they got there, one of the friends noticed that they were bleeding from a cut that went from his ankle to his calf. And some of the other members of the group also had cuts on them, and they were not sure how they got them. So Trey is a repeat offender. A few months later, his then girlfriend told him that her grandmother had a burial plot in the cemetery, so they decided to go investigate.
Okay.
When they got there, they saw a car sitting there in the dark. The car had lights turned on the inside, and there were 3 guys sitting in the car.
Ew.
Trey and his girlfriend slowly pulled up beside them and rolled down their window to ask if they were okay or needed help. The guys told them that their car wouldn't start, so Trey and his girlfriend drove to his girlfriend's grandmother's house, which was like 10 minutes away, and they got the jumper cables, returned to the car, and jumped the car for them.
That was very nice of them. I would not have done that. I'm sorry, but no.
I think probably because it was like a guy and a girl. So a guy, they don't think to themselves, let me not go up to a group of guys sitting in a car and offer my help.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Valid.
Yeah. The car started right away, and Trey and his girlfriend were just going to head out.
Right.
And the guys asked if they could follow them just in case something happened with the car again.
No.
And as they were driving on the only road in or out of the cemetery, they turned off their headlights as they passed the caretaker's house, who apparently had a shotgun. So you didn't want to...
Oh, okay. Okay. So you're trying to be secretive.
Yeah. Once they passed the house and put their lights back on, Trey and his girlfriend noticed that there was no one behind them. Thinking that the car might have stalled again, they turned their headlights off again and reversed it down the road.
What a nice couple.
They drove all the way back to the gates, and there was no sign of the car. They even sat there for a while to see if the car showed up, and the car never came back. Just gone. And there's one road in and one road out.
Right.
Like, there's...
Gross.
So the last time that he went to the cemetery was with a friend, and him and the friend didn't even get out of the car. But when they rolled down their windows, they did hear a woman scream. Trey got a bad feeling, so they decided it was best that they were on their way. They stopped at a gas station that is close to the cemetery, and when they were walking back to their car, they could see odd symbols all over the car.
Ew.
Some looked like large triangles, and others looked like handprints on the window. When they looked at the symbols later, they discovered it to be something to do with, in his words, demonic-y thing.
No.
And that was the last time he ever went.
No. Yeah, that would have been my done.
Yeah. So David Rodriguez is the guy who started Prism, who is the paranormal investigation group.
Oh, okay.
I guess was doing the investigation for the podcast episode.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So when David visited the cemetery, he brought his EMF reader. He made sure that he didn't have his phone or his camera near it, so nothing would interfere or give false readings.
Right.
So he put his EMF on Mary's, Mumford's grave, and asked, "Hi, Mary, are you with us?" And the EMF orange light turned on, which indicated that there was a lot of electrical energy or whatever coming from that gravestone. David told Unsolved that there's nothing electrical around or under the cemetery that might cause the EMF to go off. David said they got some EVPs, electronic voice phenomena, and a few orbs in their pictures. David had his own theory as to why the cemetery might be haunted. He said, quote, "That would be the history of the land, the people buried there, and sometimes the geographic location. In this case, you've got the Plate River that runs just south of the cemetery."
I talk about Plate River. Yeah. Wow. Okay, go on.
Comes full circle.
It always does.
It always does. Running water tends to increase paranormal activity. It is a private family-owned cemetery. They've been there since the late 1800s. It's active, that place. It's definitely an intelligent haunting. It's kind of like a guardian entity going on over there. Everything that tends to happen to people is a scary thing. It tries to scare them away. Why would that be? You get other hauntings at other places that it doesn't seem to be that way. It just kind of wants to make itself known. And in the case of Ball Cemetery, it's something telling you to get out of there. It doesn't want you there. It's like a protector, like something's guarding the cemetery. You can go to other cemeteries around the United States that look creepy, but they're not going to be haunted. It just happens that this one is. And I'm guessing it's the people that are buried here.
Mm.
So now we go to Reddit.
Oh, yes.
So a couple of freaky experiences. So this is from You're Always Pretty. I was trying to figure, it's like a license plate. I'm trying to figure out how the letters go together.
Did you think it was like you real something?
I was gonna say you railways. Yeah.
You railways.
So
you railways pretty.
You're always pretty.
Oh.
So they left this post 6 months ago, but it was their experience that happened in 2011. So they said, "Was at IHOP with my friend around 12:30 a.m/1 a.m. The best time to go to IHOP.
Oh, absolutely.
He brought up Ball and experience he and others had there several times. All scary stories like being scratched, bruised, and shoved. He said one girl we both knew had her eyes go completely black.
Oh.
May have mentioned a voice telling them to get out. I'd always been intrigued by paranormal, but healthily skeptical. Didn't really believe.
Okay.
Yeah. Didn't really believe or not believe him. He asks if I want to go. I say sure. We finish our meal and head there. The road there could not be more theatrically scary. It's pretty far out in the middle of nowhere, and you just have to know where you're going. You have to turn your headlights off when you turn onto the road leading there. Whoever the caretaker of this place was, understandably, not fond of people screwing around out there, and they apparently had a shotgun they weren't shy about firing off, and a large dog that roamed around the property. There's no trespassing signs everywhere. It's one way in and one way out type of setup. You come to a fork in the road and curve left into a woodsy patch. The trees make this patch of road feel like a tunnel. You emerge from the tree tunnel and you're there, and it's terrifying. The road is a gravel loop, and the way you came in is the way you get out. The cemetery itself has a gate. It was hanging open this night, but sometimes it's chained shut. My friend parks, and I don't want to get out of the car. We bitch back and forth at each other for a bit. I say I'm scared. He gets fed up with me and says, I've got a gun. I'll shoot the ghost. And demands I get out of the car.
Your mortal gun will do nothing here.
Right, that's what I said. We go into the cemetery. It's very dark, but not so dark that you can't see. Silhouettes of trees and headstones are clearly visible. I grab my friend's hand and will not let go. I'm going into this situation freaked out because, 1, don't want to get caught, and 2, a lot of what haunts this place is apparently not friendly. My friend knows his way around, so I'm holding his hand and following him. We're in the middle of the cemetery, and suddenly it gets really dark. This is beautiful. SpongeBob Advanced Darkness.
Amazing. This isn't just darkness.
This is advanced darkness. Not normal dark. I stopped walking because I couldn't see anything. We're just standing there. I moved my free hand around in front of my face to see if I could see it. I couldn't.
I don't like that.
No silhouettes of anything, just pitch black. Figured my eyes were adjusting or something. Regular dark fades back in and silhouettes are visible again, and off in the trees in the opposite direction of where the house on the property would be, I saw 2 circle-shaped lights. One orange orb and one blue orb. They were moving along smoothly and silently out in the trees, weaving around, and they didn't look like flashlights, but my rational brain thought maybe they are. And so they started doing this. They would never disappear, but they'd be in one spot and then they would be in a completely different spot. They'd just be in one place and then in another, all the while never actually disappearing from sight. They'd be closer than farther away, all the while never disappearing. There was no noise. It was so quiet. If it had been somebody out there, I think they would have been making some sort of audible noise, talking, footsteps, moving around through branches and debris, etc. They did this for a while, then just disappeared. Shortly after that, we heard our dog start barking and left quickly. Any thoughts or insights onto what this was? Some people said like an animal, and they were like, yeah, but no, because whatever.
Yeah, but no.
And then other people were just like, very spooky place, very scary.
10 out of 10 would agree. Very spooky.
Yeah, very spooky. So another user, Sebastian 2015, left a post about their experience 7 years ago. And they said, there's a cemetery where I lived called Ball Cemetery. It's supposedly haunted with multiple experiences and stuff. A friend and I have visited Ball a handful of times, but the last 2, she brought in a Ouija board.
No.
That's what everybody on the comment section said. They were like, no, don't do that. You know, I believe in spirits, but I don't fuck with that shit.
No. Absolutely not.
I believe in the paranormal realm and whatnot, but I had little trust that it would actually work. But as far as I am concerned, it did. We put the Ouija board on Mary and John Mumford's gravestones and sat on either side. The first time we thought it may have been Mary. However, now I'm not so sure. When it first moved, I thought my friend was moving it, but I could just tell she wasn't. I jumped up, walked away from the board before returning and apologizing because apparently that is very rude and bad shit happens when you leave the board without saying goodbye.
Mm-hmm.
So I said goodbye and left it at that. That part wasn't the problem. It was the second time we came back, which was just last night around 6:30 p.m. The second we got there, I'm not sure if it was just my nerves, but the whole place just felt off. We sat down at the same spot and began contact. I remember there were a lot of bird-like sounds rustling in trees, nothing specific. It was all just very loud. When we thought we heard footsteps on the gravel road, but there was no sign of anyone. A few grave decorations began clanking around loudly. Also, but the second the planchette, yeah, began moving, everything went very quiet. No birds, no rustling, nothing. There was a heavy feeling around us as it moved across the board. My friend asked, is there anyone here? Mary, are you here? The planchette then moved across the letters R-A-V-I-O.
R-A-V-I-O.
Ravio.
Yeah.
At this point, I was panicking on the inside, so I began to ask her to end the conversation. She doesn't really make it very far. But she asked another question instead, which was, what do you have to say to us? It replied with the letters DKS.
Okay.
After it replied, we said goodbye and left immediately. I have looked up the name and letters, but haven't found anything. I'm not saying we summoned a demon or anything, but whatever was there wasn't kind, and you could just feel the energy. It's something very difficult to explain. My friend went back by herself this morning and told me that the feeling wasn't as strong as last night, but she could still feel something watching her. I'm very curious about what we experienced, and if anyone knows any information on the names or meanings, drop a comment and let me know. They all said, just don't fucking do that again.
Right. Like, this is not a good idea.
So
always avoid Ouija boards.
Oh, for sure. So our final story, one user posted asking for information about the cemetery, wanting to pay a visit with their fiance. This person commented on it, sharing their experience of what happened to them.
Okay.
The user, Nobody Special, said, my friends and I would go to Ball Cemetery a lot back in the high school days, 2015 to 18. Kill me. We always we always went, if it makes you feel better, my students were born in 2014.
That sounds incorrect.
Doesn't that make you feel something?
I went to the ABC store once. This must have been in 2021 because I looked and they had zeros as the date. And I was like, their thing must be broken. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And then it dawned on me and I was like, oh my God.
Yep.
Gross.
Mm-hmm. We always went at night and never once got caught or chased off by owners. I recommend going at night. We once had a group of about 8 people there, and out of nowhere, a scream that sounded like a woman came from the forest around it. We all shined our flashlights at each other and then covered the beams of light and waited about 15 more seconds till one of our dumbass friends screamed back.
No.
At whatever that was, and not even 2 seconds later, whatever it was screamed back at us.
No.
Everyone ran, and every single person that was there that night agrees that whatever it was, that last scream we heard sounded like it was on top of us in the trees. It was not an animal, nor anyone that was with us. That was pretty much the last time we went there, LOL. Others commented as well, confirming the spookiness of the cemetery, and the original poster said that they didn't end up going because their fiancé chickened out after seeing the no trespassing signs. Which, fair.
That would be me. I am too much of the rule follower.
For sure.
They'd be like, no trespassing? We can't go, oh no.
So, of course, they're skeptics.
Naturally.
One Reddit user, the innocent one, commented on a post about the Unsolved Mystery podcast episode and shared their skepticism of the haunted cemetery. They said, I'm not convinced the haunting of Ball Cemetery isn't just fed up landowners being tired of trespassers. None of the individual stories were
corroborated.
Thank you. Laughter and screams at a distance can be easily faked, and the feeling of being kicked in the stomach could be created by a beanbag gun. It was dark. They all freaked out and ran rather than investigating. I've been cut mountain biking by branches and did not realize it because of all the adrenaline until I was down the run. The disappearing car could have just pulled into a driveway to the house because they're part of the family trying to scare people away. The symbols could have been added when the 2 dudes were distracted by the sound of someone screaming. No, that one's bullshit because it just rolled down the windows and didn't get out of the car.
But also at the same time, like, say hypothetically they had gotten out of the car, that still means there was someone there who did it. So either way, that's terrifying.
It's still scary. Exactly. It would be hard, but not impossible. Again, if that happened, no corroboration.
Corroboration.
Whatever.
Corroboration.
Corroboration. They shouldn't put 2 R's next to each other with some O's. That's just my take, though. I'm unconvinced. I don't know what TLDR means.
Too long, didn't read.
Oh. The haunting of Ball Cemetery is fabricated by rightly pissed off landowners.
Right. So there'll be something really, really long, and then too long, didn't read. You just,
this is the gist.
Brief story.
So someone commented on their comment, also sharing in their disbelief. User clandestine. They said it doesn't even need to be that complex. It should just be that these people have freaked themselves out so much that they are unconsciously remembering and misremembering selective details, maybe a little bit of both. But I was really disappointed that there was no skeptical perspectives included as they used to do on the TV show. So no matter which stories you decide to believe, it is important to remember that places like cemeteries are where loved ones are buried. Many have gone to the cemetery due to the lure of the lore.
Ooh.
That I can say. Surrounding it, and unfortunately, many do not have respect for the cemetery and have vandalized the tombstones. This is the final resting place for family members and shouldn't be viewed as some paranormal playground. Some even believed that the spirits are trying to chase away the unwanted visitors.
I kind of like that.
So as always, if you want to explore these spooky sites, remember to be respectful of the residents, both past and present.
Nice.
And that is the Ball Cemetery.
Yeah, well, it sounds scary.
Definitely.
It sounds like just the description of the drive to get there would be enough to deter me to not go.
And like the way that the trees are is that it like makes a path.
Oh God.
And they're like
I can picture it. Like I can see it perfectly in my head.
There's like this one video that was like, I saw something, and it was like daytime. And they circled it. And a lot of people were like, I'm pretty sure it's just like a tombstone or a broken tree.
Yeah.
Or whatever. This one article I read said that in like the Victorian times, they would use tree stumps as
that makes sense.
gravestones.
Right.
It was like before the turn of like America becoming industrialized. So, you know, just be nice.
Well, it does sound haunted.
Definitely. And it, you know, if you take away anything, clearly this cemetery does not want you in there.
Right. And I kind of love that idea that like the spirits there are like, can you just please leave?
Like, get out.
Like, we're going to be terrifying, so you leave. Not fun and friendly, like, come see us. Like, leave.
Absolutely. I mean, especially if it's like all in the family kind of thing.
Yeah.
Think of like Mulan. You gotta make the ancestors.
Oh. I was going to say, how is this related to Mulan?
She gets it from your side of the family.
She can quote that entire movie, by the way. Well, nicely done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Creepy. This is a place I agree with you. I would not go.
The only time I have been in a cemetery is for a funeral. That's not true. I did go visit my grandmother's grave, but it was 100% the daytime.
Oh, yeah. I've only gone during the daytime.
Nice and bright.
I used to live, this is a flashback memory. When I lived in Burke, when I was growing up, I lived there until I was about kindergarten. Behind our house, there was like a little path, like a little trail. And right next to that trail was a little graveyard.
No.
Yeah, and we would race to that all the time. That was like our racing spot.
So,
I know. I think about this now and I'm like, damn.
So, did you ever play that game where you would have to hold your breath when you pass a cemetery when you're driving?
Yeah.
My sister first introduced me to that game. So, of course, we did it. And, you know, when you see the houses that back up to those things, I would think to myself, I'm like, how do they hold their breath?
Oh, sweet child.
I'm like, their place has got to be haunted since they're not holding their breath all the time. Yeah.
All right. Well, Ball Cemetery, off the list.
Off the list. Great story.
Great story.
From afar.
Again, we will live vicariously through these people who went there.
Yep. You did the work for us. We appreciate it. Thanks. We don't need to check it out for ourselves.
Peace.
Peace. So, what you talking about, Willie?
Every time. All right, so today I'm talking about Stephen D. Richards, a.k.a. the Nebraska Fiend.
The Nebraska Fiend?
Yes. Not friend. Fiend.
Yo, I've been gaming hard on some best fiends. I got 2 new ones.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
No more talking about them until we get sponsored by them.
Oh yeah, we could do that. I'm on level like 1400.
When you said 14, I was like, oh, that's not high. And then you said 100. I was like, oh, God.
What was my score? 6. Woo! And what did I need to pass? 6. Woo! 100. You needed 600.
And you got 6. All right, let's go back to the 1830s.
Oh, wow.
A very turbulent decade, not only in the U.S., but across the world. There were wars, rebellions, mutinies, assassination attempts, and massacres.
Oh, wow.
You know when you can hear yourself in your ear?
Yeah.
Ugh. But a group of galaxies known as Robert's Quartet was discovered.
A group of
galaxies?
Oh, okay. You did say that right.
Yeah, in the space.
Okay.
In the space.
In the space.
The sewing machine received a patent in France. The lawnmower also was granted a patent. The first photo of the moon was taken. The Hunchback of Notre Dame and the first Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tale books were published.
Hans Christian Andersen. Did you know that in Frozen, Hans Christian Andersen, and then you have Anna, Kristoff, and the evil
Hans.
Hans.
Yeah. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I did not know that. But maybe less popularized, but just as noteworthy, March 1836 marked the birth of a man who became known as the Nebraska Fiend. This man would go on to murder 9 in 1878, including men, women, and children.
Oh my.
The Omaha Herald on December 31st, 1878 said this: Richards, the Kearney County murderer, gives for the first time full details of his crimes and a statement of the motives which prompted him in his bloody deeds, and selects the Omaha Herald as the vehicle through which the confession shall appear. A fiend who plans, days in advance, the murder of a helpless woman and her babes, because it would make matters more pleasant for himself and the companion of his lot. He cooks a hot breakfast and eats a hearty meal as soon as the bodies are out of the way. a character without parallel in history or fiction.
Ew.
Yeah. So just a note, a lot of where I got my information was according to Richards from newspaper articles and online sources. So because this was back in the 1800s, there are discrepancies, naturally. And the way Richard spoke was like 1800s lingo. So some of the things just don't make any sense.
So this podcast I listen to, when it's like about serial killers, like the psychology of like, here's where they started, which is probably why they ended up where they were.
Yeah.
And they always say like when it's coming from the person themselves, they're like, this is coming from them. And they were a sociopathic liars. So like,
right.
Take it with a grain of salt.
Like when they moved somewhere, he would be like, we removed to this state. We removed to this state. So it's just like very weird. So some of the things don't make sense. Some of the phrases and sayings didn't make sense. So I kind of figured it out on my own. And so this whole story, like I said, occurred in the 1800s. So all the details aren't there. So let's do this.
I'm sure you did an immaculate job.
Thank you. All right. So Stephen Richards was born in Welling, West Virginia, which at the time was actually part of Virginia.
We're supposed to be in Nebraska.
I know.
Wait, it was still part. Wait, back up.
So now it's Welling, West Virginia.
Yes. What was the date? When was he born?
Either 1836 or 1856.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Thank you. So he was born on March 18th of either 1836 or 56.
So the newspaper said Virginia, not West Virginia.
Yeah, so the newspapers would have said it, but where I got this article, it said West Virginia because it was like, but it was part of Virginia.
You know history, you know it,
right?
But then you see something that's like from someone from that time, and you're just like, fuck,
like this was their reality.
Oh my god, the amount of times I saw like Bundy arrested. Or
I know.
Whatever.
It's just it's so weird. It's so weird.
Doesn't make sense.
No, it does not at all. So he was either born in 1836 or 1856, but 56 is what I saw more.
Okay.
But we're still going to go with, whatever. So he was one of 7, having 5 sisters and 1 brother. His father worked as a farmer, and his mother was often described as a devout Methodist. His family moved around a bit due to Richard's father. They remained in Wheeling until he was about 6. Then they moved to Ohio. I know it's Ohio. So
we did just do it.
Oh, okay, perfect. So first they settled down in Monroe County, then headed over to Noble County. When he was between the age of 10 and 11, Richard lived and went to school in a Quaker village in Mount Pleasant. I think that's in Nebraska. But there's also a Mount Pleasant in Ohio and also one in Illinois, and there's just a lot of Mount Pleasants.
I'm pretty sure there's one around here too.
Isn't that Mount Washington?
No, there's definitely a Mount Pleasant like on your way to like the Outer Banks or something.
Oh, so there's just a lot of Mount Pleasants, I assume, and we're going to say it's Nebraska.
Okay.
So his teachers described him as being a very well-behaved student. Also, due to his mother being a devout Methodist, Richard attended Sunday school and church regularly. Growing up, he described himself as being a quiet, preachable man. He didn't have any trouble with anyone. He was raised well and hung out with a good crowd, never did anything bad like drinking or playing cards. He stayed out of trouble. He thought of himself as being this good guy who would be able to achieve great things in life. By the time he was 16 to 18 years old, he was a pretty good handyman. He would jump at whatever jobs came his way, so he learned quite a bit. He worked as a carpenter and helped a local man, George Walker, build a home. Just all around, Richards was a good guy and a good member of the community. So he was still living with his parents at this time, helping them with the farm and continuing on with
Loser.
Yeah. 20 years old, get out your parents' house.
Especially in the 18...
I know, you should be married and have like 20 kids by then.
Man.
But so he would continue helping around on the farm and helping out in the area as jobs came to him, so he continued to do that. Unfortunately, his mother died on September 10th, 1871 of an unknown cause. When Richards was 20, he met a woman named Anna Milhorn, and the two were quickly engaged. Apparently, he kept up a correspondence with her for years, even though you'll see they don't remain together, but they just talked forever. Around this time, he started associating with some men of, quote, questionable occupation. He began passing along counterfeit bills that he claimed he had obtained from a man in New York.
You know, I think constantly about how easy it was to escape from jail or get away with crimes back then.
Oh my God. So freaking easy. Did you do this crime? No. All right, have a nice day.
Right. Like, oh man, like fingerprinting wasn't even around until like the end of the 19th century.
And because we know of this man, obviously, spoiler alert, he does get caught.
Damn it, Lauren.
I'm sorry. And so it's weird to hear like, oh, he had trial. And I'm like, they had trials in the 1800s? Like, it's just so weird.
There was that case from DC where it was the first case of where someone was being able to be declared insane.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just so
and that
wild.
was like in 18 something or other.
Yeah. So he didn't last here long, kind of doing this whole thing, because in February of 1876, he left his home of Mount Pleasant and headed west, seeking what all seek when they head west.
Gold.
Fame and fortune.
Oh.
I think we're after the... Before the gold rush? So
Like,
anyway.
Good 50 some odd years.
Oh, just kidding.
Pretty sure it happened in the no way it happened in the 1940s. Actually.
Do you want me to look up when was the gold rush?
Please.
1848.
Shut up. Seriously?
California's most famous gold rush dates, January 24th, 1848.
Okay, so I was right that it was in the 40s. I was just in the wrong century. So gold rush.
So my thing happened
been...
after.
Yeah. But...
So I guess technically during the gold rush.
Yeah. So it's not far-fetched.
Okay. We're, again, both arguing the same correct answer.
People listening be like, you guys are saying the same thing. Move on.
I know. All right. So he spent some time in Iowa working as a farmhand in many different towns. But at some point, he ended up getting a job as an attendant at the Iowa Lunatic Asylum in Mount Pleasant. See, so this one's called the Iowa Lunatic Asylum in Mount Pleasant.
I'm thinking that it's Iowa.
I don't know. So he ended up being...
You just didn't even look it up so you could do this story.
No, I did. I did. And I know he's from Nebraska because he's called the Nebraska Fiend.
Oh, that's true. I
Thank you.
I forgot about that part.
I know.
I'm sorry.
And also Murderpedia claimed him in Nebraska. So that's what we go with.
What they say is final.
So he ended up being placed to work in one of the most violent wards at the asylum, with his main job being to bury the deceased patients. And working here really messed him up. It shaped his life, his humanity, and his view of the world and the human race.
Oh, damn.
It took away his feelings of sympathy that he once held towards others.
I mean,
yeah,
I get it. If you're working in that
environment
with those people.
He said, quote, I could stand by a man and see him die with no feeling than I would have for a hog.
Damn.
So he left the asylum a changed man in October of 1876. He no longer had respect for human nature. He then just drifted around the Midwest, spending time in Omaha, Nebraska, Denver, other parts of Colorado. Other parts of Colorado, Kansas, Missouri, Iowa, Minnesota, Northern Illinois, and Michigan.
Damn, he was all around the Midwest.
But he just kind of like bopped around. He would find random jobs here or there, occasionally falling in with the casual train robbers. He stayed in Kansas City for a bit before eventually moving over to Nebraska. He spent time in Hastings, then Kearney, then eventually headed to Cheyenne County. He was very different from that pillar of the community he had been when he was younger. He claimed that while in Nebraska, he had engaged in a number of gunfights.
Oh.
He even said that he shot each person he had a fight with and left afterwards, never knowing the condition of the person he had shot, like if they had lived or if they had died.
I mean, if I was going to have to do that, I would do the same thing.
Yeah.
But not because I didn't care, but because I didn't want to know.
Yeah. So all during this time of his life, after asylum to now, Richard went by the alias William Hudson, just one of the many names he disguised himself under. Some of the other names he used were George Gallagher, DJ Robert, William Hudson, J. Littleton, W.A. Littleton, Dick, and D. But a funny story is associated with the alias F.A. Hogue that he used. He said that he used this name because, and this is old-timey talk, he had a lady friend married. So how I interpreted this was that he was married to this lady friend. Well, he didn't.
I thought it was I had a lady friend who was married.
No, see, it was just lady friend married. Well, he didn't want to see this lady friend anymore, so he changed his name so she wouldn't be able to find him.
That's like when Chandler goes to Yemen.
Yeah. Can I stay with you? Yemen Road, Yemen. So during his travelings, he learned that he was able to hold his own. He said he never killed a man based on a grudge. He always had like a reason to kill a man.
Okay.
He told a story about his time traveling through Kansas. He met a couple of men and they were all just hanging out when suddenly one drew a gun on Richards and ordered him to hand over all of his money. He made a snide comment saying, quote, I suppose that means a man may as well shove down his hand and get it. That statement took just enough time for Richards to get the drop on the man with the gun. The other man who had been with him rode away. Richards didn't hurt the guy, I don't think, but this proved to him that he was indeed able to hold his own. So, he could be out on his own, handle all these conflicts. He was fine. Okay, so here is about the point where we get into the meat of this case. The reason he is known as the Nebraska Fiend. The murders. He admitted, after his arrest, again, spoiler alert, to having killed 4 men while he was traveling around Iowa and Nebraska in 1876 and 1877.
Oh.
He also said that his first murder was in late 1876, shortly after he arrived in Kearney. He said he had been traveling by horseback through the Nebraska countryside when he met a man. The two must have hit it off and decided to camp for the night near Dobbytown, but other reports say Sand Hills. The night was winding down, so the two decided to settle in for a little bit of gambling. They played a card game, and in that game, Richard ended up winning quite a bit of the stranger's money.
Oh, no.
They went to bed, but that following morning, the man was mad and demanded his money back, but obviously Richards refused.
Okay. Missed opportunity, dummy.
What, to
Take it
just
while I was
take it and
sleeping.
leave? Right.
Stupid.
Maybe he was tired.
Mm.
It is said that at this point, according to Richards, that the other man got mad and belligerent, so he shot him above the left eye, killing him instantly.
Okay.
Noticing that the man was dead, Richards then disposed of the body in the Plate River.
Huh. Maybe.
So maybe it added to the hauntings.
There you go. I was just going to say that.
And his luck didn't seem to get much better because about 15 miles from an area known as Walker's Ranch, Richard encountered another man who was now walking on foot. This man had seen Richard walking with someone else the day before, and now seeing him alone, the stranger asked what had become of the other man. The two started talking, and eventually Richards realized that these men, the one he killed and the one he was now talking to, were actually friends and business partners.
Uh-oh.
So Richard denied any knowledge of the dead man. But the friend didn't believe him and kept hounding Richard with questions. Making him very anxious, believing he knew too much, Richard killed this man as well so that he wouldn't be able to tell anyone. He later said that he did this by shooting the man in the back of the head when he turned around. He then disposed of the corpse and sold the man's horse to someone in a nearby town. Yeah. So
it would have been hilarious if, like, all the people were somehow, like,
related.
Like, connected. Like,
Yeah.
and then he moved to this place, and this person said, and it turned out that'd be really funny.
That would be highly unlikely, but yeah, very funny.
Story.
It would be a good story. He continued to travel around a bit, doing not great things. At one point, using Fiendin. At one point, using counterfeit money, he purchased a horse and buggy from a man. Maybe the counterfeit money he obtained from that man in New York. After this transaction was made and Richards left, the man realized that the money was indeed counterfeit and went to track down Richards. Finding him, he demanded that either Richards pay the actual price in real money or return the horse and buggy.
Fair.
Well, Richard decided to not do either. Instead, he shot the man, buried his body, and then left the area. He doesn't seem to handle conflicts very well.
No.
I think we need to work on that.
Rash doesn't sound like his frontal lobe is fully developed.
He's either like around 20 at this time
or it's not
around 40, based on which date of birth we're going by.
Right, because there's like a 20-year difference.
Right. So, you know. So maybe before I go more in depth with some of these murders, I need to make a little note. Okay. One of the men that Richards 100% killed was named Peter Anderson.
Okay.
But there are so many discrepancies about who Peter Anderson is and how he died.
Okay.
I read like 5 different stories about 5 different Peter Andersons, all being this one guy. So the whole situation I just mentioned with like the man that he met was one of the stories of who Peter Anderson was and how he died.
Oh, okay.
So somehow there was a Peter Anderson and his death is somehow described in one of these stories I will read to you.
Okay.
But there's also an unknown man who also died. His story is also somewhere in here.
Mm-hmm.
It could also potentially be the one he already talked about.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know. Everything gave a different description.
Okay.
His stories were different, like what he like told in his interviews and stuff.
Yeah.
Newspapers are different. Everything's just different.
Huh.
So I'll just kind of tell you another one of the Peter Anderson death stories.
Okay.
So this one comes from a story that Richards told the Omaha Herald and how they transcribed it.
Okay.
So this Peter Anderson was murdered on December 9th. Peter Anderson was the son of a farmer from Hastings, Iowa. He was young, only about 20. He wasn't the most educated man, coming from the farming background. And because of that background and lack of education, he also wasn't the best writer, often described as being a poor writer. He and Richards were traveling together and had been doing so for 2 or 3 weeks at this point, and the two of them got to know each other well. Anderson had an uncle who was a lawyer and a land agent. He was also very religious and would often talk about religion to Richards. Anderson also hadn't really told any of his family where he was going before his trip. He at first kind of mentioned that he was going to the Black Hills, but that was about it, didn't describe the rest of his journey. At one point, he had written to his uncle asking for some help while on the trip, but never received an answer back. So like I mentioned, Anderson was a poor writer, so Richards admitted that oftentimes he would write the letters for Anderson. So they seemed close, like good guys. This trip was also the furthest west that Anderson had ever traveled.
Okay.
So like I mentioned, the two were traveling together, but Anderson's plan was to head to Grand Island from Hastings, hop on a train there that would take him to Kearney.
Okay.
This is all in Nebraska, by the way, because we're in
Got
Nebraska. At some point, they changed their course a little, and instead were hoping to come upon the B&M rail car near Lowell and take that car to Kearney instead.
Okay.
But they had accidentally gone a little bit too far out of the way and quickly realized that they just wouldn't make it to Lowell in time to catch the train.
Oh.
Knowing that they wouldn't make it, the two just decided to make camp south of a river not too far from the B&M railroad. Their camping was relatively normal. They got a fire going, made some dinner, then started to arrange their sleeping area. And they were comfortable. They had buffalo robes, blankets, extra clothes. Like they were set. They were good. They were prepared.
Yeah.
So that night went by fine, and they woke up the next morning all good and well. But that next morning, as the two were packing up their things and getting ready to continue on with their journey, Richards made an offhand comment about, quote, a trifling matter. This is where things get spicy.
So now we're at the meat, and we're going to add some spice.
Oh. So Anderson said, that's a lie. It's a good thing you don't mean all you say. And being careless and literally giving no Fs, Richards replied with, but I do mean it.
No Fs?
Yeah, no Fs given.
Why didn't you just say the word?
I don't know, because it sounded better that way.
Okay.
Fine, no fucks given. Anderson said, you don't want to mean it. And being all tough, he picked up his revolver and said, here is something that backs all that I say. And he cocked the gun. Richards just looked at him and thought, the fool acts as if he means to shoot. So wasting absolutely no time, Richards pulled out his gun and shot Anderson straight in the head. After that, he packed up his stuff, grabbed Anderson's stuff, and made it quickly to the UP train that had just pulled in to bring him to Kearney.
Well, damn.
He went to what is called the Commercial House and registered there under the name of F.A. Hogue, which was also the one we used. He said he was from Denver, and he even took it so far as to dress the part as a herder. He said he had come from Colorado and before that had been on the Pacific coast, easily concealing any true information about himself.
Mm-hmm.
So just making up a complete lie about who he is. Yeah. Richard said from that moment on, he was never without a gun to arm himself. He said he never carried less than a pair of 6-shooters. Well, another Peter Anderson story. Richards had a 26-year-old Swedish immigrant neighbor named Peter Anderson.
Oh my God.
Just so drastically different.
Okay.
So, on December 9th, 1878, Richards had agreed to help Anderson with some work he needed done on his property. It was reported that Richards was going by the alias Dick Richardson at this time.
Okay.
It is also said that on this day, he realized how ugly Anderson was.
Oh my God.
That's like in his own words. He's like, I realized how ugly he was. So that same day, Anderson reported feeling quite ill after eating a meal that Richards had prepared for him, which immediately led him to suspect that he had been poisoned.
Oh my.
And he was like really ill, like barely making it to his neighbor's house to tell him about his suspicions of Richards. So the next day, Anderson confronted him about poisoning him, yelling at him, calling him names, and accusing him of trying to kill him. The two fought with Richards slapping Anderson. That's when Anderson started to reach for a big knife he had near. But Richards wasn't about to be hurt or killed by Anderson, so he found a hammer, or a hatchet, nearby and used that against Anderson. Richards hid the body of Anderson in his own cellar, so in Anderson's own cellar, underneath a pile of coal where it was later discovered. So after whatever story there is with Anderson, Richard leaves that area and heads back to Kearney, which is when he registered at that hotel under the alias. While staying in this hotel, he was reunited with some friends from his old days. George Dutch Henry Johnson and his companion Hurst, as well as a man named Mr. Burns. On March 21st, Mr. Burns and Richards were arrested and weren't told what they were arrested for, but Richards assumed it had to do with the death of the man from before, either Anderson or a man named Kenzie, who also apparently had been murdered.
What?
I'm telling ya.
I feel like we need some red string.
And we need like little figures. Like, okay, Richards, Anderson. Later, though, the men were told they were being held under suspicion of murder, but Richards claimed his innocence and was soon acquitted. But his...
I didn't do it.
Right, exactly. I didn't do it. All right, free to go. But his buddy Burns was held in custody due to the testimony of a sporting lady, which is the word for sex worker.
Oh.
So some girl, I guess, was mad at him, was like, he did it. He was then acquitted later after no evidence was found. So next in our murders, we have Miss Harrelson and her children, who were murdered on Sunday morning, November 3rd. Richards met Miss Mary L. Harrelson in Kearney when he arrived, but it wasn't in a normal meet-cute way. She was married, and her husband had recently gotten out of jail. The same jail where Richards was being held on a charge for larceny.
Oh my God.
But it was noted that apparently Miss Harrelson was not one to need a marriage license to say that she was married. So there were questions by some of if she was truly married to this guy or if she was just married to this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also not described how, but apparently Miss Harrelson seemed to think Richards played a big part in her husband getting out of jail. Or, if we go by another source, she had been in jail after helping her husband and a few of his friends escape from the Kearney jail. So somehow they're all connected, okay?
Through jail.
Through jail. But anywho, after that, the two began a correspondence where Richards was going by the alias at some point, a new alias. He wouldn't say what this name was, though, that he was going by, because he said that by providing that, he would be bringing other parties into the story, and he didn't want to do that.
All right, so he's not a snitch.
Yeah, exactly, like Martha Stewart.
What?
Like Martha Stewart. She went to jail because she wouldn't give the cops any other names.
I never knew why she went to jail.
I don't know why she went, but I knew that she wouldn't give people names, so she served out her whole sentence, which is why she's like tight with Snoop Dogg, because he was like, you didn't snitch.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, cool. I was wondering why so many people like her. I'm like, didn't she go to jail?
Yeah, she did. But yeah, she was like super loyal to like her people.
Hell yeah.
I think. If I heard things correctly. If I'm wrong, I'm so sorry.
You're right.
So he and Miss Harrelson got pretty close because multiple times apparently she offered her farm to him, even though Richard said that it wasn't of much value. They would end up meeting in different places, one of these places being Grand Island. And their meeting in Grand Island was a business venture. This is where Richard got the money for him to actually purchase the farm from Miss Harrelson because they had agreed that in 6 months' time, she would sell him the deed for her property for $600. Yeah. The plan was for him to
probably couldn't even afford that right now.
So the plan was for him to call her in September to complete the arrangement and sort of figure out all the additional details.
There's a phone then?
Oh, Alexander Graham Bell invented the phone March 7th, 1876. And we're 1876 as 77.
Shut up. That's so funny.
I didn't even put those two things together when I wrote this. So maybe they called each other using this newfangled phone. So Richards ended up sending a friend to talk to Miss Harrelson about the arrangement. After
maybe it was
spoke.
call for her. Not...
Maybe.
Yeah.
But everything was set for him to come in October and take the place officially on October 1st. But something kept him from coming, and he wasn't able to make it to the farm until the middle of October instead.
Oh.
But he ended up actually arriving on November 1st. So this part was a little confusing. So he said the reason that he didn't take it right when he got there was he was paying certain amounts for it, I think, or he was giving some money to Miss Harrelson. And he said that he was financially helping her. So he postponed the actual transfer until November 1st so she could keep getting these payments.
Okay.
Again, his words in old-timey English, that's what I gathered.
Sounds like a nice thing to do.
Yeah, right. Not very fiendish.
No.
So he came over, they fixed things up, getting it ready for his purchase. The house that was attached to this farm wasn't huge. It was a sod house that was about 20 or 24 by 10 feet, had only one room. But it was a relatively large room because Richards wanted to add a partition, and they're kind of going to do all these things until he bought it. So it was arranged that on that following Monday, he would take the farm. But Miss Harrelson still wasn't ready to leave by that Monday. Not all of her items had been packed yet, so they postponed it to the end of the week. This plan was that after selling the farm, Miss Harrelson and her children, 10-year-old Daisy, 4-year-old Mabel, and 2-year-old Jasper, who was nicknamed Jesse, were going to head to Illinois to visit family. Yeah, I don't know how Jasper comes from, Jesse comes from Jasper, but it's also how does Dick come from Richard?
Oh my God.
And Bill from William.
Bill.
Yeah, but it's just rhymes. It's not like it's a great nickname.
No, I know.
There's some weird nicknames.
Yeah.
Margaret. Oh, I read a weird one. What was it? It was Margaret had a really weird nickname of Mary or something.
Not Maggie?
No. Well, it is, but another one is
right.
Mary. I don't know. It's very weird. But so anywho, Jasper, Jesse. So they were all going to head to Illinois to visit family and would stay there through the winter. She would then return back to the area to live with Richards on her farm that she now sold him.
What?
Yeah. Though she still had...
So why?
I don't understand.
Oh my God.
So though she still had the same last name as her husband, she led Richards to believe that she wasn't actually married to him, like I mentioned before.
Mm-hmm.
So that them living together would kind of be like when she was living with her husband, so it was fine. But I found something noting that the two were actually married, but it was all a scam, and it was all done in order for Richards to acquire the farm in a different way.
Okay.
But I could only find it in one place, so I couldn't really confirm it.
Right.
So later, Richards told the reporter that he had actually started to think of killing Harrelson and her family about 8 to 9 days before he actually did.
Wow.
And what were his motives? So I guess Richards had already selected a companion for life, who he wanted to... Companion for life is what he said. Who he wanted to bring to the farmhouse to live with.
So he had to get rid of the lady.
But he realized that having Harrelson and her children there would make this arrangement with this life partner unsatisfactory. In order to make it more satisfactory, Richards decided on his own that it would be better for the whole Harrelson family to just not be around anymore.
Okay, but he bought the place.
I don't understand.
Couldn't you just be a jackass and say you can't come back?
Peace. No, I guess that was too easy.
Okay.
But another source said his motives for murder were because somehow Harrelson found out that he was guilty of murder, and he was scared that her talkative nature would cause him to be caught, so he decided that silencing her for good was the best option. So anywho, this is when he started scheming. He started to think of how he would do it, how he would dispose of the bodies after, the chance of discovery, kind of all the details surrounding this plan. And after thinking through all of this, he decided that his plan was a good one and that he was going to go ahead with it. So he...
Yes, this is the one. This is it. I can do this now.
Star it, let's go.
Great idea.
Richards also took into account that her neighbors all thought that she was leaving to go to Illinois as expected and never expected her to return. So her leaving and not being seen would really not be that suspicious.
He really did think about it.
He did. 8 to 9 days beforehand. So it's Thursday, October 31st, and like the original plan, Harrelson and her children were getting ready to head up to Illinois to stay with her family. She and Richards were packing up, getting the kids' stuff packed and ready to go. And packing took a while. They stayed up Thursday night, all Friday night, and all Saturday night until about 3 or 4 in the morning into Sunday.
What?
Yeah. The plan was that whenever they were ready, Richards would take them
Where
to
are they going again?
Illinois.
And I'm guessing that they're taking a horse.
They're using wheels, yes. But they're gonna, well, the plan was that whenever they were ready, Richards would take them to Hastings where the family would catch the train to take them to Illinois.
Oh, yeah. Why the fuck are they packing so much?
Because they're like living there all winter.
Oh, I didn't realize they'd be gone for that long.
Yes.
My bad. Okay.
Yes. But as Harrelson was busy packing and getting all things ready, Richards was preparing something else. He told the family that he would be out feeding the mules. So he went out to the farm near the stacks of straw that they had and started to dig a hole. It only took him about half an hour to dig a hole that was 2 by 6 and about 3 to 4 feet deep.
Damn.
Right. That night,
digging.
I know. So that night, after the digging and the packing was done, the family went to bed as usual. This is how Richards described the next morning. My words won't do it justice, so here's his quote. I had everything ready to get a warm breakfast in 5 minutes. The grain was loaded, and I was all ready to start for Hastings. I went into the house, found them all sleeping soundly, got the axe, and went at the job.
Oh!
Miss Harrelson was sleeping peacefully in bed with her 2 oldest daughters, with her baby sleeping in the crib next to her. He killed Miss Harrelson first, then the younger daughter Mabel, the older daughter Daisy, and the baby Jessie. Thankfully, none of them woke up during this, and they all died in their sleep. So the only silver lining we can have.
God.
That's why his quote is just so like blunt.
Yeah.
So obviously there was blood, but apparently it only got on one blanket and on the pillow shams. So Richard took those out with the bodies and threw them in the hole first. He then put the family in the hole in the order that he had killed them. Then hastily he covered the bodies, not caring to make the dirt look like it hadn't been disturbed. He then went back into the house and looked it over, wanting to make sure that there were no stray drops of blood anywhere. He also made sure that the murder weapon, the axe, was clean and blood-free as well. He then finished straightening up, and after he literally murdered 4 humans, he ate the breakfast he had prepared before the murders, got into his truck that was holding the grain, and headed on his merry way to Hastings.
What the fuck?
The bodies of the Harrelson family were found on December 11th by concerned neighbors. Of course, after all the murders, Richards fled, fearing that the wake of bodies he left would soon be discovered.
I mean, yeah.
While on the run, the bodies were found, and on December 16, 1878, Nebraska Governor Silas Garber issued an arrest warrant for him and promised a reward of $200 for his arrest and his conviction.
Whoa.
Which I assume was a lot of money back then.
Probably.
Okay, so it says that it can't even value the cost, which means it might be too much or something they just can't figure out. So anywho, they're going to get a lot of money if people can, provide him. So as it is, sources will vary here, but by most accounts, on December 20th, 1878, shortly after Richards moved to Mount Pleasant, he attended a ballroom dance with 2 women. Not 1, 2, but 2. I don't know if he was aware, but his wanted picture had been circulating throughout the town, and a constable named McGrew recognized him at the dance from those posters. McGrew gathered up his friend Folgy, who was a penitentiary guard, and told him he saw Richards. The 2 men armed themselves and set off after the murderer. They found him walking through a field on the outskirts of town with these 2 women. So they totally cockblocked him. So
did you put that in there? Fucking loser.
So they were actually able to quickly capture him. Richard stated that, as was his nature, he was prepared to fight, but he was with these 2 women. He told them to head back to town, but they refused, so he decided to surrender and keep it peaceful. He said, quote, "If I hadn't had the 2 girls with me, I guess the constable, McGrew, who arrested me, would have been a dead man. Either of us would, for I'd have shot."
So that's when he takes a pause and says, not in front of women.
Right, not in front of these ladies. They're too innocent.
What the fuck?
Richards was arrested and jailed in Steubenville, Ohio for the meantime. While he was there, he was ready to talk and wrote 2 articles to local newspapers about the 9 murders committed in the period of just 3 years.
So all those Peter Andersons are different people?
I'm not sure. So there's Peter Anderson.
Yeah.
There's the Miss Harrelson, her 3 children.
Right.
And then we do have that random guy who shot in the head.
Right.
And then apparently the guy who shot in the back.
Right.
And then another potential person and another.
2 more people.
See, I'm not really sure. That's why I was like, I'm just going to tell you all these stories.
Okay.
So he talked about the 9 murders. Again, didn't make any sense because
Yeah.
even in what I read from the local newspapers in his words,
There's not 9 people.
No. He did talk about someone else we murdered in March, but he was like, I don't remember who it was. I don't remember the date. It happened in March. And that's literally it. So,
well, damn.
Yeah. He was then returned to Nebraska by Sheriff David Anderson of Buffalo County, Nebraska, and Sheriff Martin of Kearney County. The main reason there was fear returning Richards to Nebraska was due to the public outrage surrounding his case.
I mean, yeah, he's a fiend.
Oh, yeah. They feared he would be, in their words, lynched. Richard knew his goose was cooked and was sure he would be hanged for his crimes.
I hate you.
So he's in jail awaiting trial, and he starts to talk to some reporters that I mentioned who he was talking to from the beginning. So these are just a few things I wanted to mention from those interviews. So one of the men who had joined the Omaha Herald reporter was a man named Colonel McNeary. He was a tall, good-looking guy with gray hair and a gray mustache. He asked the reporter if he could step in and ask Richards a question or two. What he asked Richards was, "Did you have no remorse after killing that woman and those little children?" To which Richard replied, "No, sir. They were nothing more to me than so many jackrabbits." So he has literally no remorse for anything that he does.
But let's not shoot anybody in front of these women.
Right.
I'll murder some children like nobody's business, but that's where I draw the line.
Right, these wonderful women. So in addition to the reporters and McNary, a Mr. John Rowe, who was a UP land agent at Kearney, met up with Richards. He described Richards as having no insane trait about him. So not insane, like he was a very smart guy. He was a cool, deliberating, scheming murderer. He had a common school education and was interested in studying his own mind, his own thoughts, and his own character.
So he's a narcissist.
Yeah, but he, I guess, wanted to know how he thought. He was good at reasoning, a fluent talker.
Oh, wait, the guy wanted to know.
No, Richards liked studying himself, liked learning about himself. Yeah, so along the narcissist.
Okay.
Yeah. So this guy said that Richards was good at reasoning, a fluent talker, and had a very calm, even melodious voice. He, quote, is as, I don't know how to pronounce this word, I don't want to be wrong. He, quote, is as lithe, graceful, and stalwart. I don't know what that means. A specimen of physical manhood.
I need to know this is pronounced so I don't get it wrong.
No, this is a different word. Okay, now I'm just going to start over.
Okay.
He, quote, is as lithe, graceful, and a specimen of physical manhood as ever strode a prison cell.
Oh, you didn't even have the word in there.
No, I took it out. So this physical manhood could come from the fact that Richards was described as being a big guy with large hands and large feet. His wrists were
what that means.
Yeah. His wrists were so big that bigger handcuffs were needed for him, ones bigger than any previous inmate had ever needed.
Interesting.
Yeah. Looks-wise, he was described as having a not unpleasant face.
Okay.
He had very bushy and prominent eyebrows that sat over dark eyes. He would often have a smile pasted on his face, one that would remain during any conversation. But it was believed that when he was in the midst of his cold-blooded murders, that smile would vanish, giving way to the, quote, glaring, desperate, haunted look of an assassin or an outlaw.
Oh, my.
And on December 28th, 1878, Richards was moved to a jail in Omaha, where he was then transferred by train to Kearney, where he safely arrived at 9:45 p.m. So we can get times down pat.
Got it.
But, that's bad.
Everything else.
It was literally 9:45 everywhere. So that large mob that the police were worried about did come to fruition, and on December 30th, a huge crowd of over 200 people gathered outside the jail where Richards was being held. They all wanted to see him arrive, but eventually the crowd dispersed, and he and the guards were all unharmed by the angry crowd. So the trial for Richards began on January 16th, 1879 in Minden, Nebraska. The judge presiding over the case was Judge William Gaslin. The prosecution was led by Schofield, the district attorney, and Richards' defense was led by a lawyer named, get this, Savage. Coolest lawyer name.
Great name.
So 2 indictments were laid out
He
against...
knew his calling.
I think of this all the time. So 2 indictments were laid out against Richards, 2 first-degree murder indictments, one for the Harrelson family and one for this Peter Anderson guy. Richards pled not guilty, stating that he had killed Anderson. He admitted to that, but it had been out of self-defense after Anderson had attacked him with a knife, so therefore the murder was justified. When asked about the poisoning aspect of it, Richards said that poisoning just wasn't his style. Several witnesses were called to testify by the prosecution. They testified about what state Anderson's body had been found in. Not like state as in Nebraska, but that it was found under a pile of coal. Had to clarify. Richards was also called to testify. He went over the whole incident with Anderson, what weapon he used, and what started the disagreement in the first place, all the while stating that he was acting in self-defense. It only took the jury 2 hours to deliberate before coming back with a guilty verdict for Richards.
Damn.
I know. He was sentenced to death by hanging, and his execution date was set for April 26th, 1879. Chillingly, during the whole trial and conviction and reading of his verdict, Richards remained cheerful and indifferent.
Of course he did.
What's this date? Oh, that would have been cool. Oh, if we had done this
so close.
If we had done it 1 week later, this would have come out on the day of his execution.
Damn, Daniel.
But because old-timey people loved crime as well, it was announced that Richards' execution, which would take place in Minden, would be open to the public.
Ooh.
But still fearing violence from an angry crowd, an enclosure was placed around the gallows to separate it from the crowd that would absolutely be in attendance.
Mm-hmm.
But have no fear. Tickets were being sold for those who wanted to be up close and personal in that enclosure.
Oh my.
And being ever so kind in the old times, Richards was allowed to invite some people who would also have a special ticket to be in the enclosed area. He invited some members of the press who he had befriended during the whole process.
Okay.
All in all, the execution of Richards had a crowd of between 2,000 and 2,500 people.
Damn.
I know.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So, of course, there was violence with people in the crowd trying to get to that restricted enclosure area, and they did a pretty good job getting closer, like moving barriers, cutting ropes, pushing their way in. At 1 p.m., Richards was led to the gallows by Martin and his deputy, which actually pacified the crowd. I guess they really wanted to see him die.
Yeah.
At this point, he again tried to claim his innocence in the Anderson debacle and tried to claim that he had no involvement in the Harrelson family murder. He claimed that he had been a victim of, quote, wrongful conviction. And ew.
But wait a minute, but
I don't know. So he said that while in jail, he found the Lord.
Oh, Lord.
He made peace with God and had faith in Christ. He even asked the group, the crowd of like 2,000 people, to join him in singing, "Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing." I don't know the song.
I don't know it.
But still, throughout all of this, he seemed calm and collected. The final words before his execution were, quote, "Jesus be with me now."
Let's hope not. Let's hope he's not that forgiving.
At 1:17 p.m. on April 26, 1879, Stephen D. Richards was hanged. And horrifically, it took him 15 minutes to die. I know. He would go down as being the first person in Nebraska's history to be executed.
Oh, wow.
Local doctors tried hard to get access to his body to perform an autopsy, but all were denied, and Richards was buried in Minden. But his death wasn't very peaceful because that very night, even though his gravesite was being guarded, his corpse was stolen, but it was returned shortly after.
Damn.
Then, not long after that, his body was dug up again, and this time his bones were scattered on the streets in Kearney. Then, the Kearney County Gazette stated that on November 1st, 1882, they had obtained his skull and had it on display in their newspaper's office window.
Oh my God.
But it's no longer there, and its location is still unknown to this day.
Huh.
Modern-day forensic pathologist Catherine Ramsdale made a note about Richards. She said that he was handsome and charismatic, stating that his appearance and behavior obscured his nature as a true cold-blooded killer.
I mean, yeah.
He had no remorse for his crimes and was very indifferent to his execution. She said that these characteristics were also displayed by one Ted Bundy.
I was just thinking.
Really?
I was about to say, like Ted Bundy.
Yep. So Ramsland had actually referred to Richards as the Old West's Ted Bundy. He was often described as being a cold, ruthless person who hid behind this polite, articulate, and handsome exterior. It was clear he lacked any remorse for his victims and the crimes he had committed. The Nebraska State Journal did ask him about that lack of remorse, and Richards talked about how working at the asylum was the main thing that changed him, which we know. But he also brought up an event from his childhood. So, trigger warning, animal death. So he had been tasked with killing a litter of kittens, which he did so in an absolutely horrific way by bashing their head against a tree. And after that, he realized that he didn't feel bad and felt absolutely no guilt. He actually said he found it kind of fun.
Okay, so it wasn't the freaking asylum that made you this way. You were already that way, and you just got put in a perfect situation.
That just, exemplified this, exacerbated it.
Oh, my God.
So this brought many people, like author Michael Newton, to classify Richards as a thrill killer. So he is now often referred to as Nebraska's first documented serial killer and the first person to be executed by the state.
Wow.
And there you have Stephen D. Richards, the Nebraska Fiend.
You know, I'm a little disappointed that at no point we found out why he was named a fiend.
I guess at that time, a fiend is just a bad person.
Yeah.
You're a fiend. Not a best fiend, but just a fiend.
Yeah, like sneaky fiends.
But yeah, so that is Stephen Richards.
Wild.
I know.
I really needed some string. and thumbtacks.
I know. There were a lot of people involved. And like, just think of how I looked looking at all this and being like, I need my own string.
When was that article published then?
Which one?
The one that he's like, this is what I did.
I actually wrote it in my notes. Let me go back to it real quick. December 31st, 1878. Which is like right around the time he was picked up because he was hanged that following April.
Right. Which is why I'm like, wait a minute. You told everything to a reporter. It was published. And you still went up there saying, I'm innocent.
Like, I can get the Anderson one, whoever Anderson was, with self-defense. I can see that trying to be your thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the Harrelson family, literally.
But then he also confessed to other crimes that he wasn't even in trouble for.
I know.
Oy vey.
And there were other times, I read somewhere that he like got arrested at some point before he was arrested the final time on like false convictions. So I don't know. This man.
Ugh, men.
And yeah, there was like a lot about his skeleton because so many doctors wanted it to do like autopsies on it. And like there's a picture that someone took because there were cameras then of him like dead in his casket. It's just like wild. These times, man.
These times. They don't call it the Wild West for nothing.
I like would not want to live in the Wild West. That just sounds so incredibly unpleasant to me.
Yeah. Seems hot.
Hot, dusty, gross, dirty. Ugh.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for listening. This is going to be a little bit of a longer episode because you and I haven't seen each other, so we have a lot of catching up to do.
I mean, we had to talk about all the things.
All the things.
So,
and all of our listeners obviously want to hear all the things.
They want to know all the ins and outs of our lives.
Well, if you've made it this far, thanks. Please rate and review us on things. We have some new fun things we're doing with social media. So Mackenzie do you want to talk about that now or do you want to wait?
No, I mean,
so we'll tell you soon.
Yeah.
We'll probably start announcing it on social media. So if you don't follow us already, do it.
Yeah.
There will be a lot of cool things coming up with that.
Because it may be coming out the week leading into this episode.
Okay.
So
if you didn't catch it, keep your eye out for next week.
So if you weren't paying attention before, pay attention now.
Yeah. Rate and review us on everything. Please write us in your scary stories, your weird encounters, just literally anything.
If you've been to any of the places that we've talked about or know somebody who's been to any of the places that we've talked about.
Or your friend's sister's husband's wife's fiance went.
Even the dog.
A wife's fiance.
You know, it could happen.
Or yes, even the dog. Just send it all to us at ascarystatepodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on all the social medias at
A Scary State Podcast, A Scary State Pod, and like us on Facebook at A Scary State Podcast.
So yeah, stay scary.
Stay safe.